Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us here today as we celebrate our DAR chapter's mission to remember our fallen veterans, to honor those who serve now and their families, and to teach the next generation the value of freedom. Last year, under the leadership of Committee Chair Mary Jo Kemp, our Governor Jared Irwin chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution made this mission to honor our local veterans, past and present, and their families a priority. Last year, our Governor Jared Irwin Wreaths Committee addressed one cemetery, this cemetery, with just over 200 wreaths. This year, Washington County has 12 churches and cemeteries participating with over 500 wreaths. And this year, across the country, at more than 4,000 participating locations like this one, there are millions of Americans gathering safely as one nation to remember, honor, and teach. We also want to remember that today our country is commemorating the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party. Thanks to daughters Mary Murphy and Erin Gatliff for their outreach into the community, including our schools, to ensure that Washington County is taking part in the remembrance of the Boston Tea Party, which forever changed the course of American history. Erin, thank you for providing hot chocolate for us on this cold morning. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for our national anthem and remain standing for the presentation of colors, the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home
pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day to come together to pay our respects to our veterans who fought those who wanted us to abandon our Christian values. You sent your Son to sacrifice his life to give us eternal life. You want your people to prosper, love each other, and live in peace, giving you our praise. Our enemies desired to rule us in ways that would bring dishonor to you. Our nation was founded on Christian principles, and these brave men and women have fought to guarantee that we have the opportunity to live our lives as you would have us do. These veterans are due recognition for their courage and dedication to the United States of America. We ask for your blessings as we do our best to honor you and our country. Amen.
Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You may be seated. We have two very distinguished veterans who will speak to us today. The first one I would like to introduce is Gerald Dalrymple. Gerald was born in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and attended Christian County schools K through 12. He graduated with an associate's degree in criminal justice from Mitchell College in Statesville, North Carolina, and a bachelor's degree in governmental administration with a minor in pre-law from Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia. He joined the U.S. Army in 1985 and has held many positions, including military police patrol supervisor, aviation warrant officer, drill sergeant, MIA-1, tank commander, Stinger missile system chief, and military senior counterintelligence agent. He has received multiple awards, including National Defense Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Achievement Medal 3 Oak Leaf Cluster, Military Good Conduct Medal 7th Award, 2 Special Operations Medals, 2 Presidential Unit Citations. He has served in Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq, Inherent Resolve in Iraq and Syria, Resolute Support in Afghanistan. He is currently serving in capacity as a special agent for Army Counterintelligence and ARNG G2XCI team leader. He is a supervisory special agent for all of the states. He resides in Milledgeville, Georgia with his wife Deanna, 2 dogs, Spencer and Obi-Wan Kenobi, a cat Ardo. They have 4 adult children, Cliff, Ashley, Deidre, and Catherine. It is my honor.
Good morning. Oh, there's a lot of you here. Hi. Now I get up here and forget what all I'm going to say. Mainly what I want to talk about today is the people who we are here to honor. Most people don't know of a country with over 330 million people in it. The U.S. Armed Forces of that were probably only less than 2% of those are even eligible to be in the military. either physically or mentally or for whatever reasons, age or things like that. Less than 2% of those people are even eligible to defend this country. Of those, right now, currently, the United States is sitting at 0.4% of that is even serving. So of the 335 million of us, you have 1.4 million across the entire, all the services combined is what represents you, what represents those colors. Like we said a little while ago, 250 years ago today, one of the beginning ideas to start our country went into play. Since then, we've had millions represent us in different campaigns across the world, in different conflicts across the world. What these people have done and what they've had to, it's not a sacrifice, it's multiple sacrifices for these individuals. You got to remember families. Families are usually the ones who take the brunt of whenever we're gone. It's my wife taking care of the kids by herself. While I'm gone, the government's taking care of me in one capacity or another as best they can. We're taken care of. However, our families are usually the ones that are out there that are trying to do the best that they can and do everything that they can for us and keep up with the home front until we get back to where we can get ourselves back into normal life. Through the years, like I was talking about, as far as the different people, the amount, as far as the different conflicts, the percentage of what represents you. The largest percentage that we've ever had, obviously, was in the Civil War. 10% of the U.S. population was involved in the military to protect. You go to World War I, 4% of the population fought. 4% of the U.S. population fought. Of that 4%, 53,000 didn't make it back. World War II, 6.5% of the population. Of that, 407,000 didn't make it back. Also, during World War II, the global 3%, to let you know how bad World War II was, 3% of the global population passed away in 1940 due to World War II. Once the Korean conflict, 2% of the U.S. population fought in that conflict. Think about how many of you there are in the United States compared to how much is out there. The Gulf War, 0.8% of the U.S. military, or 0.8% of the U.S. population operated in that war. In the course of War on Terror, our most recent one, that counts Afghanistan and the Iraqi War, we've been at 4.4%, and so far at that point we've lost over 7,000. Keep in mind these people, keep in mind their families, and all the sacrifices that these people put forward. I thank you for your sacrifice. I thank you for your service. Thanks.
Thank you, Gerald, for your service to this country. I also thank Dr. Robert D. Gatliff, Jr., who will be our next speaker. Dr. Gatliff was born in Greenville, South Carolina and raised in Scottsdale, Arizona up until the age of 11. Then he moved to his father's home state of Georgia. Thank goodness. Rob finished his middle and high school years helping his family run their dairy farm in Burke County. He graduated from Thomas Jefferson Academy in 1990 and graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1994 with a degree in electrical engineering and selected for Armor Branch. Rob served as the platoon leader for the 2nd ACR at Fort Polk, Louisiana, including deployment to Haiti for Operation Uphold Democracy. He served as the liaison for Lithuania, Albania, and Canada in NATO exercises at JRTC. Following active duty, Rob joined the National Guard, Georgia National Guard, and returned home serving as the production manager for photo circuits in Peachtree City and was contracted for service software development prior to starting medical school. Rob graduated from Mercer School of Medicine in 2005 and general surgical residency in 2010 from Memorial Health in Savannah, Georgia. At this time, Rob left the National Guard with the rank of Major. Rob has been working as a board-certified surgeon in Washington County for the last 13 years and serving as Chief of Staff for the last 8. He is married to Erin Brown Gatliff, a DAR member here at Governor Jared Irwin chapter, and they have 3 children, Roe, Emma, and Whit. Dr. Gatliff.
Good morning. All right, so I'm a little bit less formal, I guess, than my prior speaker. I apologize for that. I'm wearing my West Point garb. No offense to the other branch of the service, but the Army does hold the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. That's kind of a significant thing, and this is an appropriate time to say, go Army, beat Navy. I actually think, can I take this mic out and walk with it? This is much more my format. Thank you to the DAR for hosting such a beautiful event. There's very few things that we can do that can respect the veterans that have served this country and what they've done, and thank you so much. I was told about 3 weeks ago by my wife, hey, we're gonna have a DAR event, I want you to attend. Okay. And then this week it's like, hey, this DAR event, you're gonna attend and I want you to speak. Okay. And we get here and I said, what am I supposed to say? And she says, you got about 10 minutes. Just stand up and say something for 10 minutes. And I said, okay, I can do that. I'll come up with something to talk about. And then I show up because I'm late, obviously. I have to bring a table. And so it's a separate vehicle to bring the table, and I have a flat tire in my truck. I gotta put air in my tire. My wife goes on ahead and sets everything up, and then I come wheeling up in my truck with the table. And the Boy Scouts grab me and they say, oh, you must be Mr. Slow Pants. I said, oh, you must have spoken to my wife. So we set up, I brought the table, set it up, and so there's coffee and things for you all to eat if you all want that. I think what's important to talk about when you talk about veterans events is sort of the foundation of the country and what the country was founded on. Most people think that the country was founded entirely because of taxation issues, because we had to pay some tax to the British, and that's why we ended up becoming an independent country, and that's not entirely true. This country was founded on religious freedom, period. This country was founded on the idea that there is something greater than every one of us that we will respect and that we will worship. Now, your God may be different than my God, and that's okay, but you have to believe in something greater than yourself, because if you don't, then it's about me. And these veterans that served understood something greater than themselves. West Point is a beautiful institution. I feel honored to have graduated from such a place. I feel honored to be speaking to y'all because I am not as distinguished as most of these service members that have been here. My time in the service was relatively limited. I graduated from West Point and actually attended West Point because it was a free college, and it was a chance for me to go free. That's why I went. I grew up on a dairy farm and couldn't afford college. And West Point recognizes we needed people out of rural communities to serve their country, and that's why I was given that opportunity to go. And West Point is a beautiful place with so much history. And In the time that I was in, I did deploy. We deployed to Haiti. We ran something called Operation Uphold Democracy. It was actually under a UN peacekeeping force. It was the first time U.S. troops were deployed under the command of the UN, not under the command of U.S. soldiers. And there's a reason why that occurred that I won't go into, but that was my service time. And as I served and worked with these other soldiers that were in my unit, I had tremendous respect for the dedication that they had to something greater than themselves. And that's extremely important to understand. The motto at West Point is God, then country. If you ever have an opportunity to see the campus at West Point, you are going to see a building at the highest point on that campus. Anywhere on the campus, you can see that building. It is the highest point in the entire place. Anybody have an idea what that might be? That is a chapel. It is a non-denominational chapel built in a Gothic architecture. It is a beautiful building. It has battle flags that line the inside of it. When I was there, they were the original battle flags. They were original battle flags that had blood stains from the soldiers that gave their life for this country. And as we would sit in service, parts of these flags would flake off and fall. And we always talked about that because these flags represented the service of the veterans prior to us. And it taught us very early on there is something greater than yourself that you are serving. And it's extremely important to understand that because that is the foundation of this country. Is there is something greater than every one of us that we will respect, that we will look up to, and that we will worship. Now that's highly offensive for some people, but it's the truth. And so West Point was started in 1802. They started West Point because when they finally got a country founded, they came up with a brilliant idea. They drew up a constitution, first a Bill of Rights, then a constitution, and they had to try and figure out the architecture of what this country was going to look like going forward. How could we build a foundation that this country could survive? And by 1802, when you started getting the structure of the government together, they said, we need to create an institution to train the future leaders of this country. Now, future leaders does not mean military personnel. A small percentage of the officers, as he will tell you, in the military are West Point graduates. And the ones that are pretty much picked on for being ring knockers, because we tend to walk around with a gigantic ring on our hand that we knock on a regular basis to say where we came from. Because we have a lot of pride and respect for the U.S. Service Academy. But the day that you get there, you learn very quickly, it is your God first, and it is your country second. And that is extremely important. And the founders of West Point recognize that unless we teach people that there is something greater than themselves, they can never serve our country in a way that is necessary. And their mission is to create leaders, not just officers. And there's a difference there. I feel that I honor my institution because I try and be a leader. I serve my community in Washington County as a general surgeon and try and do the very best that I can. If you look at the graduates of West Point, they are not just Army officers. They're basketball coaches. They're CEOs of organizations. They are leaders. And they understand, first and foremost, there is something greater than themselves that they will serve and they will worship. And that's extremely important to understand. I know I keep harping on that, but that is the foundation of success. In 2012, there was a cadet that tried to question that institution on that very point. Now, as a plebe at West Point, you are required on either Sunday or Saturday to always attend a religious event. And again, the reason for that is because their motto is God first and country second. That came about because of Vietnam. In Vietnam, there was oftentimes orders that were given that did not follow a proper moral code. And when those people did those orders and carried them out, and they went back to the courts and said, why did you perform this? And they said, because it was an order. I was told to do that. And the court said, I don't care. You knew it was wrong and you should not have done it. Because there is something greater than that country that you should be honoring. Does that make sense? And they were punished appropriately because they went out and did an order that did not follow a proper moral code. Even though it was an order, they should have had an internal sense of moral self to know what the right thing to do and not follow the order. It is God first and country second. Now, when my wife told me I had to give a talk, I pulled up the motto of the DAR. Does anybody know what that is? God, home, and country. Now, home for a cadet is a really cold place in the mountains of New York. So they left that part out. They just said God, then country. And so in 2012, a cadet who had a lot of mental issues, his father had committed suicide his second year at West Point. West Point is a very isolated place. For the entire 4 years you are there, you are very limited in the time you are allowed to leave. It's pretty stressful and difficult. Now for me, coming off of a dairy farm, I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning and milking cows. So getting up at 6 o'clock to go do duties was not that big of a deal for me, and I felt I could sleep in a little bit more than I did when I was a dairy farmer. When you go to West Point, your first 2 years are free. You owe nothing. If you decide before you start that next class that I'm going to walk away, they say thank you for your service and away you go. You got 2 free years of college. And I was 100% convinced that's exactly what I was going to do. Because I could not tolerate the structure, the discipline, the constant nagging, the hazing, the academics. My first roommate was 17 and was already past the board as a lawyer in New York. Impressive individuals that I were dealing with on a regular basis, all my classmates that were there. And I said, you know what, I don't belong here. These people are way smarter than I am. These people are much more talented than I am. At the end of my second year, I'm going to leave. And I went to airborne school. And I got a chance to jump out of airplanes. And I had a friend that I met there, a guy by the name of Mike Schwartz. Mike Schwartz was a SEAL, and he had just finished 18 Delta, which is their medics program. And I had tremendous respect for Mike Schwartz. Mike Schwartz was a solid individual. And he knew that I was probably going to go back and not go to my first class. Because the moment you report to your first class, you stand to attention, and you give report, you now owe the military. And if you get kicked out, you're going to be 4 years as the private non-promotable. If you make it to your 4th year and you get kicked out, you're going to be 4 years as a specialist non-promotable. Because now you owe them. And I was convinced I wasn't going to do that. I'm going to walk away and be happy and never sign up for that first class. At the end of airborne school, Mike Schwartz and I sat down and had a long conversation. And he said, if I could trade places with you today, I would. God put that person in my life to tell me this is what you need to do. And I thought about it and I went back. Now I tell you this story because this cadet wanted to make the argument that separation of church and state was not being honored at West Point. And because of that, he had the right to leave and not owe any sort of commitment. And he published an article in the Huffington Post. And the Huffington Post went crazy. They loved it. Here is this government organization forcing religion on other individuals. And because of that, he should be given respect and honor and not have to serve. The backstory to that, which the military never told, the backstory of it was that when they did his evaluation, he was not eligible to be commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army because he was on mental health medications and because of his depression. And so he was at a point now, his 4th year, where he was going to have to either pay back a tremendous amount of money or go serve as a specialist non-promotable in the military. And instead, he took a different route. And he published an article in the Huffington Post and got lawyers involved and hoped to overturn this idea that there should be separation between God and country. What he didn't recognize is that when West Point graduates read that article, they stood up tremendously for the institution itself. And they said, there is separation of church and government, that you don't have to worship, but recognition of something greater than yourself is the single most important variable to a leader going forward. Ultimately, he got out of the service, and he did not have to pay anything back. But again, that concept of God first and country second, the foundation of West Point. And it's interesting that the same motto exists in the DAR, God, home, and country. So again, I know I'm taking up way too much time. And I thank you for the opportunity to stand up and speak. I feel very honored to be given the opportunity to speak in front of a group of people. And feel very unqualified compared to the veterans that are serving here with us. Thank you very much for your service. Go Army. Beat Navy.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with God bless America, my home, sweet home.
As Rob and Jerry so eloquently helped us understand, the United States of America was founded on the ideals of freedom, justice, and equality. Our nation stands as a shining beacon of liberty and freedom to the world. We thank those who gave their lives to keep us free, and we shall not forget you. We shall always remember. Today we reflect on and honor our nation's veterans and active duty service members who have and continue to fight
to protect our freedom. For this we say thank you. These wreaths that are about to be laid at the flag of each branch of service symbolize our honor to those who have served and are serving our great nation, and to their families who endure sacrifices every day on their behalf. As a nation, we need to understand that the freedoms we enjoy today have not been free, but have come with a cost. This is why Wreaths Across America chooses to remember the fallen, honor those that serve and their families, and teach the next generation the value of freedom. Representing today the United States Army are Sergeant E5 Brad May, if you'll stand, and First Sergeant Richard Dean Smith, Jr., if you'll stand. Sergeant May served in both Tikrit and Iraq and was a member of the 467th Engineering Battalion for 8 years with a year of active duty. First Sergeant Smith, who retired after 24 years of active and reserve duty, served during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Operation Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and several others. We would like for all who served or are serving in the United States Army to stand, or raise your hand if you're not able to stand. Other Army members, please stand. Thank you. First Sergeant Smith and Sergeant May will lay wreaths at the U.S. Army flag. If you will please give them a round of applause just this moment. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. You may be seated. Tommy Dukes, representing his father, T. Murray Dukes, Sr., would you stand, please, Tommy? And third class Petty Officer Adrian Parham, if you'll stand, represent the United States Navy. T. Murray Dukes served in the United States Navy during the Korean War on the destroyer USS Tinggi. Petty Officer Adrian Parham served in the United States Navy in Vietnam from 1961 to 1965. We would like for all who served or are serving in the United States Navy to stand as you are able. Petty Officer Parham and Mr. Dukes will lay wreaths in memory and in honor of those who served and are serving in the U.S. Navy at the U.S. Navy flag. Please give these Navy gentlemen a round of thanks. Thank you. Representing the United States Air Force are Sergeant Ronald Lee Deem, if you'll stand, and Technical Sergeant Serpicia Holloman, if you'll stand. Sergeant Ronald Deem served 4 years in the Air Force and was stationed in Vietnam and Thailand in 1971 and 1972. Technical Sergeant Holloman served 20 years of active duty in the Air Force and is now the Junior ROTC Coordinator at Washington County High School. We would like for all who served or are serving in the United States Air Force to stand as you are able. Thank you. and Sergeant Deem and Sergeant Holloman will lay wreaths in memory and in honor of those who served or are serving in the U.S. Air Force at the U.S. Air Force flag. If you would please give these service people a round of applause for thanks.
Good morning. Representing the United States Marines are Corporal Joshua Badham and Lance Corporal Sean Jones. Corporal Bradham served 4 years of active duty at Camp Lejeune from 2006 to 2010 as a machine gunner with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines Regiment. He did a combat tour in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. Lance Corporal Jones served from 1996 to 2000 at Dobbins Air Force Base. Would all who served or served in the United States Marine Corps please stand at this time? We will now lay the wreath in memory and in honor of those who served in the United States Marine Corps. Thank you. Representing the National Guard are Sergeant Zach Lindsay and Sergeant First Class James Stevens. Sergeant Lindsay is in his 7th year serving in the National Guard. He was deployed to Afghanistan in 2019. He now serves in Bravo Battalion, 214th Field Artillery. Sergeant Stevens is in his 28th year of service in the National Guard. He is currently serving with the 1214th Forward Support Company in Washington, Georgia. He has previously served in the 648th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade, 1st Battalion, 214th Field Artillery. In 2010 and 11, he was deployed in Afghanistan. As they lay the wreath in memory and in honor of those who served and are now serving in the National Guard, we ask that all current members or veterans of the National Guard stand and or raise your hands.
Representing the United States Coast Guard is E4 Electrician's Mate 3rd Class John Davis. Please stand. Electrician's Mate Davis served in the United States Coast Guard from 2011 through 2016. stationed at Small Boat Station, Cape Charles, Virginia, and Sector Key West. He will now lay a wreath in memory of those who served and are serving in the United States Coast Guard. As he lays a wreath in memory and honor of those who served and are serving in the Coast Guard, we ask that all current members or veterans of the Coast Guard stand and raise your hand. Thank you. Representing prisoners of war and missing in action is Randy Hall, son of Emmett Hall Jr. Emmett Hall Jr. was a POW during World War II while serving in the United States Army. A wreath will be laid in honor of the 93,129 United States servicemen and women from all branches of the service whose last known status was either prisoners of war or missing in action. Some of these individuals have never returned to their families and homes. We shall never forget you. Thank you, veterans. Today we honor the veterans laid to rest in the Sandersville Old City Cemetery. Veterans are also being honored by friends and family members with the donation of wreaths in their memories or their honor. Join me in a moment of silence for these veterans. And now Franklin Plate will sing the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.
Sort of hate to follow that. Wow, and everyone that's here. And on behalf of the DAR, thank you
for attending and on behalf of all these veterans. And in closing, I want to say a few words about our veterans and to our veterans. This past Veterans Day, I read a Facebook post by a veteran's wife that I know, she and her husband, about his service 16 years ago in the Marines. And while I was raised to respect veterans by my father, well, and my mother too, what she said in that Facebook post just put everything in a completely different light. And something she said about how 4 years, it's amazing how it can define 36 years. And it talked about the effects of his 4 years on him during that time, the effects now, the effects on his family. And as I said, as I read it, I just got a different view, thinking about what veterans have done, what they have been through, what their families have been through, and how much we really, really need to honor them and appreciate them and the sacrifices. It's not just what they do, it's the sacrifices they make. And as I thought about the post and my final remarks, a couple of words came to mind. Words like brave, courageous, bold, daring, selfless. Kind of see where I'm going? All of those are synonyms for the word hero. A hero is someone who understands the responsibility that comes with his or her freedom because they've helped to ensure our freedom, everybody else here. A hero is someone who gives of himself or herself, and it often requires putting their life at risk, but they do it for the greater good of others. And who are those others? Us. A hero is Robert Gatliff, Gerald Dalrymple, Brad May, Richard Dean Smith Jr., Adrian Parham, Thomas Dukes Sr., Sir Peter Holloman, Ronald Lee Dean, Sean Jones, Josh Bradham, James Stevens, Zach Lindsay, John Davis, and Emmett Hall Jr., and any and all veterans here today and all over. And I would like for each of you to stand at this time. All veterans. Thank you. Y'all can be seated. These veterans know better than we do the price of freedom, for they've made the sacrifices, and they've done it, once again, I keep saying that, us. We can offer no better tribute to all of you and veterans everywhere than to protect and carry on what you have won for us, that freedom. I pray that we never forget the sacrifices each one of you have made, whether big, small, sacrifices nonetheless, so that we could be here today to honor you in this very special way. May we always honor and remember. I pray we do not forget. For all of us here, I say thank you for your service. But honestly, to me now, thank you for your service does not begin to scratch the surface of how grateful we all should be to you. And once again, I say thank you. And so as we close, it is time now for our wreath laying ceremony. And for those who wish to lay wreaths today at the graves of all the veterans in Old City Cemetery, we certainly would appreciate it if you would stay and do that. And on the backs of your program, it talks about the proper way to do that. Boy Scout Troop 74, if you would please stand. And each one of these young men will assist you in any way with the wreaths. We have them placed around, and the flags represent the graves of veterans in this cemetery. And we ask that when you place a wreath today, that you say each veteran's name out loud and take a moment to thank them for their service. And it is a small act that goes a long way. And once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for my speakers back here, for our singers. I don't see the other one. Thank you so much. Veterans, thank you for your service. And that goes way deeper than thank you for your service. Thank you.